We are now joined by Dr. Steve Pieczenik in our final segment, and we've got several huge issues to cover. Number one, they are back with more bin Laden lies, saying he was, killed a year or so ago. They're in Pakistan, and now they're publishing books saying that they didn't get Pentagon authorization or Intelligence Committee authorization to publish them. From what I know, that's impossible, but we'll ask Steve Pieczenik about that. We'll also talk about massive record suicides. 28 veterans are dying for every person dying in combat. Unbelievable. And we'll also talk about Obama's statement, "You didn't build that," because I know that Dr. Steve Pieczenik is a big supporter of the entrepreneurial spirit, kind of the Thomas Jefferson idea of the craftsman and the yeoman farmer, and I want to get his take on that and the whole election. But first off, we couldn't have somebody on better to talk about this headline in The Guardian. Osama bin Laden killing book by SEAL Team 6 member raises eyebrows. No classification information will be betrayed, publisher says, but they didn't get the clearance. Well, you're not allowed to do that. I mean, I think this is government getting a pass here, but we'll get Steve Pieczenik's educated take on this, because he has written a bunch of best-selling books, some of them that I know obviously had to get vetted. He's helped write a bunch of Tom Clancy books. His films have been turned into TV shows, movies. He really needs no introduction. He's a frequent guest here. StevePieczenik.com is the website, and you can go there and learn more. And he joins us via telephone today to jump into all of this. Steve, thanks for coming on with us.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Alex. And the reason I came on today, and I want to thank your audience, is that you're developing an incredibly informed audience from what I'm reading in terms of the blogs and the internet. And I'm not just congratulating, I'm congratulating for what you did 10 years ago when it was first stated, and I said after 9/11 that this was a lie. It was a false flag, it was a stand down, but basically Osama bin Laden was dead. He was dead because he had Marfan syndrome. Now, everybody's tried to disprove that he didn't have Marfan syndrome. The problem that the intelligence community that created this under Bush Jr., and by the way, Bill Clinton started this, because Bill Clinton had already sent a doctor to see bin Laden 6 months before 9/11, Dr. Dooley out of the CIA, to see how bad he was. He was dying at that point. And the point that I'm getting is now Hillary is the one who says, or is in another book, by a guy named Nanette, claiming that she was the one who encouraged that bin Laden be killed by Obama, which is absurd, because Hillary can barely get her husband away from fornicating with other women, letting alone the President of the United States to kill anybody. So let's go back to the lies. The first lie is Osama bin Laden is dead. He has been dead, was dead, and is dead. There's never been any evidence of his body, a video, forensic evidence of an autopsy. The intelligence community, State Department, and the President of the United States never refuted my statement. Having worked for 5 presidents, I stated it categorically. Having still been involved in the intelligence community, the military community, I maintain that this has been a serious lie that has been the crux of corruption of both our military and intelligence community. Why do I keep saying that? Because a man by the name of Alex Jones, whom I didn't even know, took that statement, and I said something that was even more important, and you broadcasted it again, and I go back to you, Alex, and that was a year ago, you repeated my statement in which I said, I predict, this was done after 9/11 and 9/12, I predict that not only is Osama bin Laden dead, but he will be resurrected by the intelligence and military community at the exact date when we pull out of Iraq, because that was the only excuse that we, the United States, had that was contrived and concocted by our intelligence community, the CIA, MI, the military, and a combination of civilians to justify a war for which we had no reason to go into, and created by Cheney, Bush Jr., Rumsfeld, initiated by Clinton, that was not, and then continued by Obama. So what do we have? We have a lie that basically unwinds the entire presidency of 3 different presidents, Clinton, Bush Jr. for sure, Bill Gates had to come in, and now we have a president who comes out of Chicago, out of a corrupt machinery, who was handled by a man by the name of Axelrod, who his own Wikipedia claims that his particular strategy is to be able to package black politicians for the white audience. That's his specialty, as he states it, who has helped committed criminals, indicted criminals, Mayor Daley, to get through patronage problems, and is helping now Obama, who has no history of anything, no history of his birth, no history of his record, of his schools, of his health, where he went to school, and now he claims that the sole reason he should be reelected for President of the United States is because he ordered Team 6 to kill Osama bin Laden. And on that day, you re-recorded, you recorded what I had said 10 years ago, and I said the president is lying. Not only is the president lying, but everyone behind him, and that means John Brennan, who was CIA, was his director of national security, was Clinton's director, was underneath Bush Jr. So you have men who have continued and perpetrated the lies, but no one has stopped it. No one has stopped it. And you have Donlan, who's national security advisor. No one stopped him. Nobody stopped General Dempsey from saying this is a lie. Or McAllister, who was the head of SOCOM, Special Operations, who's the head of the Navy, an honorable man. There are military generals and CIA officers who have complained that this lie cannot continue, and they've been reprimanded repeatedly by Martin Dempsey, General Dempsey, whom I confronted over a month ago. I can't tell you where, and they asked him, when does a general in our American military stand up to civilians when they do a wrongful action against the Republic? He waffled off of it. And the same thing with other generals. And what's happening now is that lie has not only unwound the integrity of our military and our intelligence community, it is unwinding the validity of an election system, which is so valuable to the Republic. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, you, Alex, are owed a lot of gratitude, and so is your audience.
Well, Doc, hold on for just a sec. Don't thank me. This is all about survival, and I know you don't like to have your...
No, it's not. It's not about survival, Alex. We won't confront that. It's about one man who stood up, and that was you. And by chance, I happened to find you. We didn't know each other. And by chance, you came back to me because one man in Austin, Texas, I didn't even know where you were. But the point of fact, it's not about you and me now. It's about an American public. Let me read you the blogs that I read. An anonymous person has written a narrative. This is the new book by an anonymous man talking about the killing of Osama bin Laden, SEAL Team 6, that's coming out by Dutton, and September 11th. If that is not the most cynical piece of work I've ever seen by a publisher that is cowardly, Dutton, greedy, which I happen to know exceedingly Dutton, a division of a company that I know is very greedy, Berkeley, where I worked for, and I had books done Putnam, and I happen to know the president, David Shanks, who was in court, basically admitted that he was a coward with regard to me and the books that he had.
Well, Dr. Pieczenik, let me just stop you. Let me just stop you for just a moment.
Go ahead.
Because you're just, I understand you've got a million things going on, and I'm not being patronizing here.
No, I know. You want me to focus it
No, but I'm not being patronizing here to the audience. Right. But there's an IQ gap going on here in that we've got a lot of smart people. I think I'm somewhat smart. You're super smart, but you're, again, we didn't get into your whole bio and things because you don't like to get into it, but it's important for the whole story that you ran psychological operations for the State Department. You've helped bring down governments. I mean, so you're definitely an insider, and you're just dropping bombs here like, hey, I confronted the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff about this. Hey, other generals know this is bull. And when you say they sent CIA doctors to treat bin Laden, that was even in CBS News. You're just moving so quick here, but let me just back you up. They've now admitted that the Situation Room photo that you said 2 days after it happened was fake. They admitted months later it was a fake photo.
They could be watching I Love Lucy, but there certain was a raid.
Sure, they staged it. They lied. They weren't watching live satellite feeds. The point is a whole thing's a lie.
They weren't watching Osama bin Laden being killed. It's not possible to watch a man who's already been dead being killed twice. I don't know that.
But exactly. But just going over these, there's some new things, though, that I wanted you to address, and you just kind of warp speeded over them.
I'm sorry.
Now, but I mean, it's okay. Now they're saying Hillary gave the order and Obama didn't, so they're changing it again. And what I think, but you understand this better than I do, They never let anybody publish one of these books, especially this, without it being vetted. No. Now they're claiming, oh, a publisher's doing it. We don't need to have it vetted. I think they basically wrote this. This isn't even a real SEAL team person. That's why they say it's a nom de plume, and that this is, again, them distancing themselves when they really put it out.
I think I know exactly what you want me to say. Let me say number one so your audience understand. I have 26 New York Times bestsellers, all fiction, except for one, which is about women, hidden passions. When I write about any of the activities that I was involved in, I don't. I write fiction. And why I write fiction is because I have a secrecy law. Having worked as a deputy assistant secretary, I didn't work for the CIA. I didn't even work for, I had a military rank, but I didn't work in anywhere where I used information that I was involved with in any of my books. What I did was to create fictional characters that were composites and events that were composites. Op Center is a composite of the world situation. And by the way, by the time I wrote those, I was 10 years out.
Who is Jack Ryan a composite of?
Now, Jack Ryan was based on a character that I lived, and that was Tom Clancy, who developed it because initially he was an analyst of the CIA, and then eventually as Tom Clancy and I worked together, he developed more and more of the character based on what I did in Panama against Noriega. And
so that's what I thought. Jack Ryan is you.
Well, in part. I can't say that, nor will I. I mean, Tom is a very creative individual. He is a very fanciful. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's got a great Irish wit. So I can't say I'm totally Jack Ryan. I'm in part. The stories are based on what I did in hostage negotiations. But, in fact, none of our books, either Tom's or mine, or 26 novels, have ever been in a classified situation. But on top of that, I think it's important for the audience to understand, and I'm glad you corrected me, that every publisher has to vet that book so clearly that even when I made a reference to something 150 years ago that the Delano family was running opium in one of my books, that's 150 years ago, into China, that was canceled out. So the fact that this book is being published without the consent of the Defense Department is at best ingenuous and at most a lie. General Dempsey is lying. I will boldly say to you he is lying. Panetta
sure, this is their book they're putting out.
Bannon is lying. But it's more serious than that. And Dutton is lying. What makes this a terrible lie, and Dempsey went out of his way to reprimand ex-CIA and ex-Special Forces men who have been heroes in our cases. And by the way, people have to understand, I worked with the Special Forces. Most of them do not say anything. They work 24/7, 365 days a year, and their life is compromised by this book. And that's the terrible part about it. Dempsey never said a word about it. Brannon never said a word about it. Donlan nor Panetta. They have been cowards. They have been professional, self-aggrandizing individuals at the stake of our serious, valorous veterans who are dying out there. Most Special Forces never tell you what they do. By the way, they aid other countries. They're on 24/7 endlessly. Remember General McChrystal? He just commented about the fact that he didn't think the White House was that effective. He was fired the next day. Now, you're telling me that a book that's written by a special guy, supposedly in SEAL Team 6, which should have kept their mouth shut because the head of the Special Forces now is McChrystal, an excellent rear admiral who should have clamped this down immediately, and General Dempsey should have clamped this down.
They're being ordered by the president to do it. So what do they do at that point?
If they are ordered, they're not cowardly. Then we have a politicized military, which is what I'm afraid of, and that's what you're saying. If our military is politicized, it should be fired. Dempsey should be fired. Brannon should be fired. Panetta should be fired. Donlan should be fired. And the National Intelligence Officer, because we cannot have a country.
Sure, but pulling back, what does this signify that they're so
military or intelligence service?
What does this signify, Dr. Pieczenik?
It's not safe.
What does this politicize that they're doing all this stuff? I mean, does it signify that they're amateur or just reckless?
It signifies both. What it really signifies, with all due respect to you, and I know you won't believe this, they were afraid of what you and I had said 10, 12 years ago. They can't get over the fact that you brought back, with all due respect, and you're not in danger, with all due respect, you came back with a prediction that I made 10 years ago that the day we leave Iraq, Osama bin Laden will be pulled out as a narrative that is supposed to justify what happened.
Yeah, you said he'll be thawed out off of ice, and then in the election 2 years later, the word was they were going to do it then. But then they had Madeleine Albright, Walter Cronkite, and Teresa Heinz Kerry all went on CNN in 1 week and said, they have him, don't roll it out, Bush. Don't use that card. And the word is he went back basically on the ice. I mean, this is just incredible that they would have the nerve to play this card.
Well, what it does is it insults the intelligence of the American people. We're not dummies. I'm not here to glorify myself, but I'm not here to even say it. I'm here to state very simply, I have been in the business of serving our country. I still offer my services for free. I find this reprehensible, not because it's only a lie. It degrades the service of honorable men and women who are serving our country, are now in the field, both in the intelligence and the military field, whose lives are at stake. Every time you say we killed Osama bin Laden by some hotshot, make-believe SEAL Team 6, some special forces guy is going to be taken out because some real terrorist is really going to kill him to make a point that special forces are not that special. And at the same
That's
time,
right. It's made the special forces the absolute plum target to go after.
Correct. And it's made it even worse. Now, Dutton has no excuse whatsoever for having given a contract that they knew they could not vet out the author. And they said, this is more absurd, they said that the author brought his own lawyer to vet out the issues. Now, that is so absurd. There is no publisher that is stupid enough to allow the lawyer of an author, if there is such an author, to vet it out. So you know
because that lawyer wouldn't be privy to all the national intelligence information. They couldn't vet it.
That is correct. And also, it's conflict of interest. Dutton needs their own lawyers. Penguin is a very major house. But what it shows you, once again...
It shows you that the White House ghostwriters wrote this because they couldn't get SEALs to write a real story on something that didn't exist. They've already blown up 2 of the helicopters. This is just pure fiction.
Well, no. It's not only fiction. Fiction can be detrimental. This is cowardly and greedy on all parts. On our military side, you're cowardly because we have generals who are afraid they can't continue their promotions or get their pensions, and they can be fired very easily. If I were in charge, I fired generals. I fired CIA operatives when I had 5 administrations, and the president's backed me. But you have a president who really cannot do very much now. And you have a president who has a White House that has been servicing, Brannon was servicing Bush Jr., Clinton, and now Obama. And you have Hillary Clinton, who's put in Panetta, who was Clinton's chief of staff and a congressman from a walnut congressman.
Totally political.
Never really had military experience, who's now in charge of our military and was head of our CIA. Now, you don't have accountability here. What you have are men without integrity, without professional expertise, utilizing a political expediency and narrative to manipulate the fears and concerns of our country while we have bigger issues. For example, we have 28 veterans dying every month here, committing suicide while 1 veteran is being shot in Afghanistan and Iraq, and our military doesn't concern about it. For months I've been writing, fired General Shinseki, another useless general. Least professional general I've ever seen, the head of the VA. He said, no, I increased my staff from 10 to 20,000. He had no idea. Meanwhile, my psychiatrists around the field are saying these guys are dying by the caseloads because the treatments aren't correct, the nurses, the management, incompetent.
Well, I was about to stop you. I was about to stop you, Doc, because I want to start over here. You are uniquely, because you've worked in intelligence, State Department, you've got multiple medical degrees from Harvard and other universities, and I mean, you were the former head psych warfare guy for the State Department, which we all know is above the CIA. So explain to the viewers, from your expert opinion, why we're seeing record suicides.
This is the first time. Let me explain it so they'll understand. I'm a psychiatrist by training, trained at Harvard. I had a PhD in MIT and international relations at the same time, not because I'm that smart, but because Harvard wasn't that great. The reality, I was a board examiner. That means I examined other psychiatrists for 10 years. I flunked 60% of all psychiatrists coming through on a simple question, which was, tell me what you see in front of you in terms of the psychiatrist and the patient, and if you can't give me a differential diagnosis, you're out. And I flunked them. And I was threatened that if I don't pass them, I'll be in violation of EEOC. Well, I left. I said, I'm not bringing any of these psychiatrists. For years, I kept saying to our military men, the Veterans Administration, where my friends are major psychiatrists, are telling me soldiers are dying right and left, committing suicide at a greater rate than we had ever seen. Why? Because this ungodly war, which was not justified, created by Clinton, Bush, and maintained by Obama, we're forcing our soldiers to go through not one rotation, which is what we may have done in Vietnam, or what I did, 2 or 3 rotations overseas. We're going through 4 rotations with minimal amount of rest. We're forcing their families to talk to them on the television, on the internet, telling these soldiers who are brave enough to go to 4 rotations, hardly ever seeing the enemy, who have concussions from IEDs, electronic devices, never seeing an enemy, being shot at repeatedly 24/7 to come back and tell us they're okay. And instead, the military has refused to recognize these are not just psychological problems or psychiatric problems. These are what we call brain damage problems or traumatic brain injury. In almost every one of them, if you do an MRI, a resonant imaging of the brain, you will see scar tissue in almost every one of these soldiers. But our Veteran Administration says, no, a lot of them are fake, a lot of them are just malingerers, and our military refuses to respond to them. As one soldier said, listen, you could train me to kill people in 6 months, but you can't get me in to see a doctor in 365 days.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next.
That we have now in America.
Amazing. I want to bring that up right now because some of them are serving 6, 7, 8 tours. I was on a plane with a military police officer who was flying his dead buddy back. You know, so they had the coffin on the plane, and they had the police cars and the mayor, everybody meeting it to take it out to Fort Hood. When I flew back into Austin, and I said, how many tours? 5, 6? He goes, no, I'm starting my 8th. And he said, now military police see the worst duty because we're escorting, the vehicles and things that are being bombed in Afghanistan and Iraq. He'd been in Afghanistan, but his best friend had been sent to Iraq and had just died from an improvised explosive device. And so they're just sending him through this over and over and over and over again. But then I wanted to ask you the question. Sergeant Bales was going to his 4th tour. He'd lost his family, had a breakup over this, had been arrested by police, freaking out. His foot had been almost completely blown off. They stuck a prosthesis on him and ordered him back to combat. So I've never heard of an army where your foot, 2/3 of your foot's blown off. And then the psychiatrist put him on serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which the insert says under stress can make you, not have compulsion control and start going crazy, causes suicide and other things. And then he sees his buddy get IED'd and killed that day, and then he goes out and kills 18 people. And burning children and stuff, in some type of hallucinogenic psychotic break. I mean, you're a psychiatrist. Does that sound right when I'm saying they're just common sense? His foot's blown off. He's got a fake foot running around doing this duty in Afghanistan. I mean, this is insane.
I agree. Listen, I don't know the specific cases, but the cases are mounting up with a certain pattern, Alex, and this is what your audience knows and understands well. Each one of the members of your audience has a son, a daughter, or a friend who's been involved in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's a tragedy. Our military, we had a motto in the military, we never leave anyone behind. Our generals have left our soldiers behind. There is no excuse for General Dempsey to reprimand any one of our ex-soldiers and veterans and special forces and CIA, saying that we shouldn't politicize this kind of nonsense that came out, or politicize the fact that we have veterans who are dying at the rate of 26 per each one killed overseas.
Or 28.
We have 6,000 veterans per month who are being deactivated, 4 to 7 rotations, and there's no place to live. They don't have the benefits, and the military has said, we're doing the best we can. They give them a treatment program called virtual imaging, which my ex-medical school, Cornell University Medical College, had the audacity to show that this could be a treatment. Now, you don't have visual images of bombing and get desensitized to it when, in fact, you have brain damage. We're not spending the money. We're not giving the amount of time that we need to treat these soldiers effectively and get them out.
Sure, well, Bales is the guy.
Iraq. They should never have been in Afghanistan. I asked the President of the United States, why doesn't he send his 2 daughters there? Let him understand what it means instead of keeping them in a private school. Why not send Bush's children in there?
Sure.
Or Cheney's lesbian daughter he's so proud of, to go over there and fight overseas to see what our soldiers have to do and deal with. The issue now is that we have politicians who've lost their legitimacy. They've lost their legitimacy as really caretakers of a republic and a democracy, which we men fought for. I had PTSD in one of my rotations, but it wasn't a military rotation because I worked as a singleton overseas. That means you work alone, you're continuously under stress, you live under stress 24/7. And it was months on end. And when I came back, I had swollen hands, swollen feet. I was totally irritable, and I had to see a doctor. There's nothing shameful about it, but it is a real problem. And that was one rotation. I've been out over 8 different years on rotations where I had to come back. But I had the affordability because, number one, I was a doctor. Number two, I could go to the doctors at the State Department, and they could handle that problem. But I've never seen such an atrocity now.
Sure.
Where not only is a lie made a mockery. I mean, the lie that we killed Osama bin Laden. We didn't kill anyone. That man was dead. And that our presidents would continue these lies in order to justify their selfish political careers, in order to justify that they had to come into power where they've done nothing. And instead, our economy is going down, our men are dying, and our infrastructure.
Well, I have one more question for you on that front, because I heard you take a double take, but we put them up on screen, mainstream news articles with artificial legs ordered back into combat, not just part of the foot blown off, whole legs ordered back in, even when some of them don't want to go back. But it's funny you mentioned the head injury, because they admit the body armor keeps you alive, but messes up your brain. It turns out that Bales, that went crazy and went and killed reportedly 18 people in one night off base, he had been in multiple IED attacks, including ones where whole armored vehicles were thrown over and people killed. So he clearly had brain damage. And so now they're going to put him behind bars when he was clearly doing this by reason of insanity. I mean, and I'm not trying to get him off for doing.
I don't know the specific case, but it's not unusual. In other words, most of these men who've gone to war, number one, they don't see the enemy. Number two, they often hit indirectly by either concussion bombs, IEDs, and they literally have a concussion of the brain, not once, not twice, but several times. It's like a football game that never ends, but with serious weapons. And basically your brain is damaged. You can have every serotonin inhibitor you want, but unless you have psychiatric treatment for the rest of your life, not virtual imaging or desensitization or nurse telling you everything's fine or there's a problem in your family or some veteran in the VA telling you that it's not working well because they increased the number of managers. They didn't fire General Shinseki, who should have been fired years ago for the criminal activity that he's at. And this was a veteran, a man who lost his war in Vietnam, his leg, and we took care of him. But the answer is he's not taking care of our veterans, and this president really doesn't care, and neither does the vice president, who, by the way, has 2 aneurysms in his brain. That's what accounts for a lot of the stupidity that comes out of his mouth. But the real issue right now is our country has to address these issues, and unfortunately we don't have politicians. Why? Because most politicians, as I explained to you, I've treated many congressmen and senators, are basically people, mostly men, who are fearful. They're not able to do anything on their own. They go into a system which is based on manipulation and basically pandering, and they're fearful to come out and do something that most Americans do, which is to create a job, to sustain something for themselves, much as you did, much as I've done. I mean, I've started different companies many times. I've failed many times, like a mechanic, like a farmer, like a truck driver who has his own business. I just ride on the road, and I love to see my truckers because that's their business. They're hauling freight. They have to worry about the oil. They have to worry about the infrastructure of the truck. The politician has no idea. They're passing laws that they have no idea. They're taken care of health-wise, mental health. They can see the doctors they want in Bethesda Naval Hospital anytime they want. They go on junkets and vacation, be it Paul Ryan, be it Biden. Any one of them has that. The only one who's had any experience has been Romney. He had to go out in the real world. I'm not saying I'm for or against him, but the reality of the entrepreneur is that they have to go out and create their own businesses.
It's
The
funny you
problem
raise
is,
that, Doc.
I shouldn't vilify politicians, but there's no way I can respect them.
Sure.
I come here not to bury Caesar, but I come to praise the politicians who really lived in a cocoon, in a socialized system where they have been treated, and they deserve to have a 10% approval rating. That means America has to rise again and say, this is not a system that works for us. And it's not working for us in the military, in the intelligence, the executive branch, or the legislative branch. And as one brilliant analyst once said, he said, our political and economic elites have failed this country. And that's what I'm afraid of.
Well, they certainly have, but it's interesting that you raised that point about the weird bubble cocoon of ninnying and sycophantic behavior where Congress exempts itself from its own insider trading laws and where it's prostitutes, both male and female, are ubiquitous like water fountains. I mean, it's a total disconnect. But it's funny you raise that about entrepreneurs. I wanted to ask you that question. What do you make of Obama? Because that is such a disconnected statement that I find it frightening. That's one of the few things that actually really got me concerned, that the system is so over the top now in la land that they're saying you didn't build it if you have a business. You know, you didn't write those books, Steve. You didn't... when you infiltrated foreign countries or got people assassinated, you didn't do that, Doc. You know, if I get up at 6 a.m. and start researching stuff, or I work 18 hours a day, or I paint an oil painting, I didn't do that. I mean, that's what Stalin and people said, and Lenin said before they took, you know, the Ukrainians' land and killed 10 million of them. I mean, that is an amazingly open, authoritarian, North Korean style la land that you didn't grow that crop in North Korea. Kim Jong-il did it.
Well, I'm not going as far. I mean, I know about Kim Jong-il. I know a lot about stuff. Obama is no Stalin. Let's get it correctly. He's not even a communist. He's not any political spectrum. He really comes out of a system that's called Chicago politics. And I think you want to really understand Chicago politics, and Mayor Daley and the henchmen who came out of there, the Donlins, the others who grew out of the Chicago politics. And it comes out of patronage. It comes out of corruption. But some of it worked. Now, Obama has no history. It's a man. It's the X-Man. He has no history. He has no coordinates. The only coordinates I can tell you about that I feel comfortable at is, number one, his mother was a CIA operative in the 1960s. His grandfather on his mother's side was a CIA operative. And his grandfather on his mother's side was also, and grandmother and grandfather were both CIA operatives. As to where he was born, I don't know. As to the visas, as to why he has restricted history, should never have been allowed in this country. Everything about a president of the United States should be transparent. He has not been transparent. All he has been is a lot of verbiage with very little action and follow-through. Now, that may work in Chicago. It does not work in the United States of America. To accuse him of a communist or being a North Korean, that's absurd. I don't agree with that.
Doc, hold on, because you're on cell phone and you can't hear me all the time because it's one way, basically.
Right.
I mean, it's a figure of speech. I'm saying I've heard and read.
But I don't want him. I don't want him in any way to be put in a narrative which really doesn't delineate the real issues of Obama.
No, I hear you, but I wasn't, Doc, I wasn't technically saying he works for the North Koreans. I'm saying,
I know what you mean.
I'm saying I've read the North Korean literature where they say the state makes the sun come up in the morning. And what I'm asking you as a psychiatrist, what type of mindset, how do you have to be so disconnected to not know that would piss everybody off in America who's ever had any type of business, either large or small, to say you didn't bake those donuts, you didn't build that? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, that's correct, Alex. But let me go back to the bubble I talked about in politicians. He is the pure political animal who has no history, no coordinates other than his own narcissism, which means his own self-love, his own willingness to manipulate and lie to achieve whatever he needs, not any different. Democrats, they both have the same criteria. His own need to pander at times when he needs to pander, you know, treat me nice, give me this, and I in turn will give you whatever you need. And then he has the ability to continuously distort reality. So what do you call that? In many terms, we call it sociopath. In my world, because I treated congressmen and senators, I call that a politician. By birth and by nature, politicians are sociopaths. They have to be, because they have to lie and distort their own histories, their own accomplishments, be it Republican, Democrat, right-wing, left-wing, it doesn't matter. The Stalins of the world, however, believe it or not, they're more real, because they're going to kill you right in front of you. They say, I'm going to kill you, they kill you. Kim Jong-il says, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. They're very predictable. The Obamas are not real. They're detached from the United States. There's a quality about Obama, and I'm not saying anything about his birth, that he is not really connected to America. He doesn't understand the American values. Let me explain what I mean by that. The American values that I hold, and I think you hold and most of the audience holds dearly, are entrepreneurial values. We're not big companies. We're not big banks. We're not big finance. This is not Soros. This is not J.P. Morgan Chase. We're not Goldman Sachs. We are little business people, who little meaning anything below 500 million or below, where we build our own businesses and we live and die by what we create. When we create something, we want to profit from it. When we fail at it, we want to try again. The beauty of the American experience is not that we succeed, it's that we can fail and come back again the next day. Obama doesn't know that. He doesn't understand it. Donlan doesn't understand it. Brandon doesn't understand it. There's not one man in that White House or woman in that White House who understands it. What they've had is pandering, and many of them had affirmative action. That's fine. I did not come in on affirmative action. I wasn't born here. I had to learn this language. I had to get scholarships. I had to go to a school. The irony of all I'm white. Okay, I'm a Caucasian. The irony is, between Obama and me, one of us went to private school, and guess who it was? It was Obama. I went to a school called Booker T. Washington on 108th Street in Amsterdam. That was an all-black school. I was a minority. I didn't get to a private school. I had to earn a scholarship. Among 2 million people, it was called the Regency State Scholarship. What made America great for me was I was allowed to try the best I could on merit to earn out of 2,800,000 of us earned a scholarship to go to Cornell University. They didn't care whether it was white, green, or blue. All they cared was that I could score on a certain score. Then I went to a Cornell Medical School on a scholarship. Then I went into the military. I have not seen any. This is the first time in 83 years of our election that neither man has ever served in the military. Whatever I can say for Obama, I can also say for Romney. Where was he during the Vietnam era? Why didn't he go into the military? Why did John Huntsman, who had a similar background, serve our country 4 to 5 times and had 2 sons in the Navy presently, yet not one of his 8 children, boys, have served in the military, nor did Romney. So the question becomes is, what are our leaders coming to? What is the political elite that we so-called cherish? They're willing to spend billions of dollars, but none of them address the issue.
Well, Doctor, we're almost out of time. I want to hit a few other final points, but what you say is fundamental. In every culture, the royalty, the ruling elite had to go out and be in the battle, and cultures in serious decline were always marked by emperors off in smoky, ballrooms, partying and having orgies. And you only see that happen right when an empire collapses. And we do see an elite who, rah-rah, war, who absolutely run from it. All the neocon chicken hawks, to a man, ran and got deferments and staged things not to get into combat. And I think it really is one of the signposts showing that we have, I agree with you, I mean, even these murderous dictators, Stalin robbed banks. Stalin actually worked his way up in a bunch of killer communists to the top.
That's correct.
He's
You're
evil.
right,
He's evil.
That's right.
I mean, he's evil, but you've got to respect him because he's real. Yep. These are just empty teleprompter reading jellyfish, and that's what makes them so dangerous, because now they're so amoral, they're publicly using Al-Qaeda to go in and kill the Christians and people in Syria. And have you seen the new stuff where they've got the guy torturing him to make him go suicide bomb? I mean, it is just unbelievable how immoral the ruling elite have gotten.
Well, the key issue now is, whatever you and I have said, I still believe in the American dream and the American people. Unfortunately, no one has articulated. I'm just a small businessman who served my country. That's it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of what I did. I'm proud I can stand up and say I don't agree and I disagree. That's what allows me to stay in this country and to fight. I'm no more brave than anybody else. Somebody said to me, how come you're not afraid of getting killed? Because in my world, that's not what the issue is. In my world, if I don't stand up for someone, then someone is not going to stand up for me. That's the American way. But do not use our men and women to go to wars that we don't need, and don't bring them back and then treat them as cripples when in fact they need to be helped, and give our entrepreneurs a chance to grow in this country. We're a wonderful country, but we don't get that sense. We don't need this kind of leadership. And I'm going to the young and to the youth and to your audience to say, I want you to express yourself once again on the Twitter, on the Internet. Defy what they say. Question them. Keep on doing what you've done, Alex, because you've become a very important thorn on the side of this entire politicized intelligence and military community and the elites. Believe me, as much as they call us wacky and, right-wing or whatever, they cannot avoid what we're doing. All of this that's happening now, Alex, quite frankly, is because of what you did 10 years ago. This is what the intelligence community can't get around. Because the minute I said that was a lie, and I predicted 10 years from now that would be used as an excuse, Osama bin Laden.
You did.
They have to contrive all of this nonsense and spend billions of dollars because of thanks to a man called Alex Jones.
Oh, no, but let's just, well, thanks to you, but let's just stop right there with my final question because it's incredible. You're leading into each point before we even knew I was going to get there. All over the country, radio talk show hosts with even good-sized audiences. We talked to one on the radio yesterday, and this other Marine who had no criminal record, combat veteran, honorably discharged, the Rutherford Institute, we had the lawyer on earlier, got him out. They're having 20,000 involuntary commitments now, and they said, because he said 9/11 was an inside job, that he was mentally ill and came with the FBI and grabbed him. Now after a week, they've released him. But the point is they're doing this to veterans and taking their guns now, and it's a huge chilling effect. So I want to ask you about that and psychiatry as a tyranny. And then I want to ask you, why are we still alive? I mean, what you said earlier, that quick gestalt, is true. People think I'm trying to scare them. No. I believe people have courage, and that if you know the truth, you'll want to make preparation for it. As Patrick Henry said, I believe that if I have courage, it will spur others to have courage. And I believe that if they kill me, I don't want to die, but that's a good death because these are a bunch of degenerate scum. I mean, I don't understand people that say they could come get us. They're going to get us if we don't stand against them. They're going to get us if we don't stand up and fight. I fear the fear. I fear letting them win. And that's not courage. That's basic survival instinct. For me, that's a default position.
Well, yeah, it's true, but on the other hand, one voice in the dark, as you said, no matter how you said it and how loud, is a defiant voice. With the system, remember, it's not one person who's going to come. The most dangerous person in the world is never the group. It's the man alone or the woman alone. Ibsen wrote it about the master builder in one of his plays, and that's what you are. You're the man alone. You happen to build an audience of 10 to 15 million listeners. The intelligence community listens to you. The White House listens to you now. The military listens to you, and they're afraid. And remember what I said to you, politicians and military men who all have to be in groups, by nature they're fearful. So the only way they can promote themselves is not by claiming that they're greater or better. They have to suck up to someone else. It's always being pandering to the top and being dominant authoritarian to the bottom. And that's the nature of the systems. And so, in fact, when the individual can defy the systems and they claim that 9/11 is an inside job and they get put in psychiatric hospitals, then we're going into the Soviet system, where they're starting to use that again, by the way. The Russians are starting to use the psychiatric hospitals for Soviet dissidents, which is what I wrote about in my first book, The Mind Palace. If America starts to do that, there will be violence in the streets. What the system doesn't understand is that we still have the Second Amendment. We still have men and women who have fought for our country, and they're not afraid to fight.
Let me ask you this question.
We're not France. We're not Italy. We're not Spain. We're America. And the system is beginning to understand that if they push us too far, There will be bloodshed in the likes of which they have never seen. The fear they have of me has to do with the fear that I know each one of them. I know where they are. I know how they move. I know where they're going to move. They know that. But also is that I don't fear them, nor do you fear them. The answer, the American can no longer fear the TSA agent who goes in and takes the product from his or her luggage or steals my, for example, drugs, and they're not brought accountable. We have a whole system now out of control.
Sure.
TSA, the lowest level of people giving the highest security, screening us for a terror that doesn't exist.
Sure.
It's absurd.
Let me in closing ask you this, because right before you came on, my wife talked to me for about 3 minutes during the break, and we got home yesterday and noticed the door was open to the house. We live in the country, and the alarm hadn't gone off. So and then I said, well, you know, obviously they want to know us to know they've been in the house. And then she noticed the air conditioner wasn't working, but it was on. So she had the air conditioner company come out. And he's a guy that installed air conditioners, you know, a year ago for us. So, you know, he's a listener. And he goes, I want to show you this. And he went in there and showed her in the crawl spaces. Somebody came in my house and cut through the tubing that sends the air conditioning, the central heating, cooling. What kind of message is that to break in my house and then go in and cleanly slice in crawl spaces the air conditioning hosing? I mean, what is that?
Well, I don't know what that is, but are you in fear? Are you monitored? Of course you are, Alex. So am I. I mean,
no, but I mean, if they think that scared me, I mean, wow, I mean, it kind of feels good, actually. I mean, whatever they do, I guess they got to do it. I mean, what do they think that's? It's like a riddle for me to discover it and then find out they were in my house. I mean, what does that even mean?
Well, first of all, let's be a little bit more objective about who they are. Most of the systems, the FBI, the CIA, all of them, they're good people. They're some very good people. They're not interested in doing anything in monitoring Americans or doing anything but their jobs. The problem is you've got the bad apples and you've got the politicized ones who are self-aggrandizing, particularly in the military that has more generals than we have soldiers. It's out of control. Our military-industrial complex is out of our control.
But, I mean, you were a former psych warfare head of the State Department. What does breaking in someone's house and cutting thinly slicing, you know, the shiny tinfoil style, you know, tubing that goes through the house, whatever you call that.
From a psychological warfare, if I were somebody doing that, it wouldn't do very much. If I had to take down Alex Jones, I would shut you off on the air. That's what I would do. But I don't think they're going to shut you down, Alex. You have too big an audience.
You know, my gut tells me it's some kind of government watchdog type group. You know, groups that the government has that watch extremists. My gut tells me, because they've been talking trash about me lately, that that's the type of stuff people would do. I mean, it's probably some non-governmental merc minion group is what I think.
Well, I don't know. I mean, listen, you live in Austin, Texas. You've got a lot of high-security jobs there. You've got a lot of military-industrial complex. But also, you have a lot of people who care about you and your welfare. So I think you're going to be surprised how many people in the intelligence, the military, and the security world really care about you and will protect you. And that's not going to happen that easily. But my point is that we're still coming to a problem where we have political elites that are not consistent with the quality of what we need in America. And we need people who care about this country, who serve this country, and who can say what is the truth, what is required, and just be very practical without needing to self-aggrandize, to lie, and to send men to war for their own self-aggrandizement. It's as simple as that.
It is. Well, you know, in the final equation, anything else you'd like to add, Doc? We really appreciate you and your time.
Yes, I have great faith in my country. I have great faith in the American people and those who listen to you and those who believe in the Democrats, the Republicans, and the fact that tomorrow we are able to fail, get up again, and start another business. And God bless this country, and God bless what we do. But we're not stupid. And I have a great faith in our country and our ability to say, you know, all of this stuff about Osama bin Laden and the election and the books is nonsense. And it's degrading, and they will eventually react to it. You look at the blogs, you listen to the internet, you see what they say. Avoid the TV, avoid the rest of the nonsense, and you will come back to the truth. And I have full faith in you, and I appreciate what you do, Alex.
Well, I appreciate you, and thank you for giving me your take on that final issue. I know it sounds wild. I can't even figure out what the point.
No, it's not, Alex. It's, you know, you live a life which is filled with a lot of excitement, and there's a life of also some danger. I mean, that's part of the price you pay for what you do. You know it. Your wife knows it, unfortunately, and you and I know that.
I find it exhilarating, though. I guess that's kind of sick in a way.
Well, not really. I mean, that's better than riding in a NASCAR car around than 200 miles an hour around a racetrack, so that's better. You're in much better shape than you like to tell me, Alex. You're very healthy, Alex.
All right, Dr. Pieczenik, StevePieczenik.com. Please join us again soon. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, audience.
All right, tell him thank you. Guys, that's it for this edition of InfoWars Nightly News. And, you know, I was sitting there thinking about, should I talk about this? Because we're like, why is the door open? Why did the alarm not go off? And then we learn, well, the air conditioner's on, but there's no AC. And the guy comes out and goes, somebody's cut your AC. The thing's in the walls and in the ceiling. And, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I don't know what that message is. Okay, you're in my house. That's great. I mean, you know. And I got an iPhone right here that I know you're listening to. Just what a bunch of sick criminals, man. You people are nuts. And I would just add, the people above you, they hate you. I mean, they're putting fluoride in your water too, Jack. So we've definitely got their attention, though. And it is so strange to really realize that we are one of the few groups that really has our finger on the pulse of what's going on, and that all this stuff is unfolding and coming true right in front of us. And we're living history. I don't know how anybody wouldn't be blown away right now by just people that say they're bored, who say that life is boring, and that's because you're watching television all day or not reading what's happening in the world or not involved. There are huge world events taking place right now. By the way, by the time you see this, it'll probably be sold out. You can go to InfoWarsShop.com or Infowars.com and try to get it. We printed an extra 40,000 of these, thinking that would, well, 20,000 at first, thinking it would be enough for people that wanted to order them at cost in bulk. And we sold 20,000 out in like a day, and now we've sold most of that additional 20,000 that we did have. So go check InfoWarsShop.com, and if it's still up there, because it's computerized, it'll know when we're out. That'll still be there, and you'll still be able to buy it. And that's it. I can't print more of the first issue. 50,000 on the streets of Austin. Now an additional 40,000 printed just to mail out to people in bulk, because our shipping department can't handle it. So that's it. I mean, that's if you want a free e-copy, sign up at Infowars.com/newsletter. That's Infowars.com/newsletter. And we will continue over the next few days to send out a free copy with a daily email blast that has videos and breaking news to your inbox. Because you can, the way the digital system works is you can even turn the page, and you can like zoom in on things. You can click on links. So it's not as tactile as being able to touch it. But Web 2.0 is here. Rome burned, will we? Economic collapse, peace. And I want to thank all of our guests. I want to thank the head of the Rutherford Institute, Mr. Whitehead. I want to thank, of course, Dr. Steve Pieczenik. And I want to thank our first guest of the night, who was in studio after I did the news, good old Dan Badandi, one of our new reporters. And he's also over there helping produce the radio show with Chris Alanese and CJ, and, of course, John Bound, and all of the great crew that's here. We got Jakari Jackson on camera, because that's how it works. Everybody does everything around here. And if they kill me, you guys are going to be in the command seat, so get ready. And I've got my will ready, and all that stuff's been set up for that. And it'll be a real victory if they kill me. That shows it, because that'll wake up a lot of folks. I don't want to die, but we're definitely moving in the right direction here. All right, that's it for InfoWars Nightly News. We'll see you back on the radio tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central, Lord willing, and right here at night.